on our line now is our weekly visit with the one and only Lanny Davis. And Lanny, I know that you go way back with Michael Steele. In fact, you two are partners with the Purple Coalition, I believe it's
Purple
called.
Nation Solutions.
Purple Nation Solutions.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Lanny, now is your, we just spent a half hour wrestling with Michael Steele's political future, and this is a great opportunity for you, Lanny, to fully endorse in a full-throated fashion Michael Steele's candidacy as governor of the great state of Maryland. Lanny Davis, reach across that aisle and promote your friend Michael Steele as governor.
Hey, don't mind him, Lanny.
Well, first of all, I'd like to make a public announcement on this holy day of Passover that, yes, it is true, Michael Steele and I have been married for a number of years, but we waited for the Supreme Court to say it's okay.
See, you didn't need state sanction for that. Why do we have to redefine marriage on a federal basis, Lanny? You two are
it's
getting
the bald head. I know that's what it is.
Jewish male and a Republican, African-American, Republican conservative don't announce marriage that easily.
No, and Lanny, they don't do a whole lot of things easily.
No. I honestly.
Good morning, Michael. You're
good morning,
early, buddy. And to endorse a Republican, my father is in heaven on Passover. I don't think I will do it publicly, but in the privacy of the voting booth, I cannot tell you that I can resist voting for Michael Steele. He is highly qualified, highly intelligent, committed to public service, and therefore totally unelectable.
Right.
That's okay, Lanny. We know you're starting a super PAC right now on behalf of Michael Steele as well.
Lanny's a good man. No, he's a good man, a good partner, a good friend.
Well, we talk about your marital union that the two of you have, and this is a timely day to talk about it because the Supreme Court is going to take up the first of two same-sex marriage cases today. And Lanny, I mean, you were there in the White House right after President Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act, and now, of course, he and Hillary have jumped out and said, well, that's not a good idea anymore. Where do you stand on the Defense of Marriage Act? Because, well, let me hear where you stand on it first, and then we'll enjoin the conversation.
There you go.
Well, it's quite remarkable the change that everyone, including myself, has undergone on this issue. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have given it a second thought that, of course, marriage is between people of different sexes, and that we can recognize civil unions and give equal rights, but the word marriage attaches to a heterosexual relationship. That's what you call just a knee-jerk, psychological, cultural position taken over the years unthinkingly. Now, 10 years later, if you ask me for a reason why two people in love who can raise children, who can be successful partners, can't be of the same sex, I'm literally hard-pressed to think of a reason. So it just shows that 10 years ago it was thoughtless, and I certainly had the position I did. Now it is completely, I can't imagine why I did. I have a feeling there are a lot of people listening who have gone through the same transformation.
Well, let me ask you this, though, Lanny, because I think I'm just looking at it from the constitutional aspect and the legality of it. Isn't it disingenuous for the president and others to say that we want to leave the states to decide this? Because as soon as one state affirms same-sex marriage, all the other states have to honor that marriage as well. So, what do you say to the people in Idaho, for instance, or Utah, who want to retain the traditional definition of marriage legally in their state, but somebody in Maryland gets married and then they move to Utah? What are they to do?
Look, I started out by conceding that 10 years ago I had a completely different position that I hadn't thought through. Now I actually cannot imagine why the Equal Protection Clause doesn't apply here, meaning states don't have a choice when they discriminate irrationally. And in this case, in 1898, the Supreme Court held that schools could be segregated. And then in 1954, the Supreme Court said the Equal Protection Clause said they cannot. They didn't allow Arkansas and Idaho to segregate their schools. They said our U.S. Constitution, which is supreme over state laws, will not permit states to discriminate. I think this is a decision by the Supreme Court that should say no state can discriminate based upon the difference in one person's definition of marriage versus another, because it's an irrational distinction.
Well, I think, I hear your point on that, Lanny, but I think the court, quite honestly, is going to find a way to punt this back to the states, to let this whole issue play itself out. at the state level first. I don't think they want to preempt the way we saw the preemption of judicial decision in Roe versus Wade, where the states had not had a chance to fully weigh in to see where we are. You have 38 states right now that have either a constitutional or legislative ban on gay marriage. You have 9 states in the District of Columbia that accept it. The momentum notwithstanding, if what Larry says is in fact true, then the preponderance of this constitutionally or at least legislatively rests with those 38 states who have already decided what it is they want. So I don't know ultimately how this plays out in terms of states changing their view, evolving as the president and others have done, and I think that remains to be seen. I think that's something the court may want to see how that plays out as well. What do you think there?
Well, I respectfully disagree, but that's why I love you, because you're my partner, and
right.
you're wrong, but I still love you. There's irrational discrimination guaranteed by the Constitution when you try to say that people who are heterosexual are allowed to have civil rights that people who are same-sex marriage are not, unless there is a rational basis to that distinction. In 1954, the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to let each state decide whether to have separate but equal.
Let me ask you a quick question on that.
Discrimination, I don't see now. 10 years ago, I would have seen just nothing. I didn't think about it.
Right, Lanny, we're up against it, but we got to ask. We're trying to get one more question.
No, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Well, you keep saying irrational or an irrational discrimination, and I know that that's a very important legal word here. So my question is, why is it irrational to affirm the traditionally held definition of marriage that it's been since the beginning of time? And wait, Lanny, let me clarify. Lanny, hold on. Bring him down. Lanny, we're running out of time, and I got to be able to get my argument in. As long as a state affirms equal rights for same-sex couples without assigning it the term marriage, how is that irrational discrimination?
Well, because you're depriving people of various civil rights because they don't have the name marriage attached to their relationship, and the word marriage, some people, and every individual has a right to decide, is an important word to be recognized under the law. But if you're going to not recognize the word marriage, it should be based on something, some fact that distinguishes same-sex marriages from heterosexual marriages. And until recently,
the fact that the genders are the same.
Can you?
All right. I don't think it's irrational to distinguish between gender, because, I mean, marriage has always been defined as one man and one woman, and so it's not irrational to maintain that same tradition.
I mean, this is not always. I think there's a fair point that that's our tradition, but that's an emotional, religious feeling. That's not a fact.
All right, Lanny, we're going to have to leave it at there, unfortunately, and we'll let the listeners
and as usual,
decide.
He's wrong. So that's
but listen, Michael Steele actually may get my vote, but if I were to endorse him, it may ruin his political career.
This is true.
I don't know. Not in Maryland, it wouldn't. All right, Lanny.
Lanny's a good man. He's a good man. Thank you, Lanny.
Thanks for joining us as always.